Hello, my name is Layla and welcome to my weekly analysis for the week commencing the 18th of June 2017, and I will be looking at Euro USD, and this is the monthly chart. I usually like to start with an overview of how I've arrived at my particular analysis. So with this chart we're going to be looking at quite a lot of history. In fact, we go back to the latter quarter of 1995. So as you can see, this is quite a lot of data. But take a look at where we are in a current sort of context. We are actually in the larger part of a downtrend. What I want you to note about this particular situation that we're in at the moment is how different this particular pattern looks in comparison to where the market turned at these points. So this is lower highs and lower lows, resulting in an overall sort of downtrend, particularly prominent back here from about sort of early 2013 to mid 2014. So we had a very strong downtrend, very clear in comparison to quite a lot of the other trends, which were a little bit more choppy. This is pretty clear as well, but this was a nice clean downtrend. And since then, since mid 2014, we've been in a range, and we are now mid 2017. So this has been going on for an incredibly long time, but obviously on the much lower time frames inside that are going to be short-term trends in either direction. So it's not a complete disaster to be in a range, but it does give you a bit of a picture about where your sort of outer limits are, and where you might be looking at a sort of general change in direction once one of those limits is broken. And those limits at the moment are 105 and 1.15. So we're caught in this quite broad range. That gives us quite a lot of space, and we are currently moving in a fairly bullish fashion towards the upper limit of 1.15. So let's take a closer look at what we might be dealing with in terms of levels and obstructions, and what we might be expecting to try and work our way towards. First off, I just want you to notice that this overall is lower lows, but on the RSI we actually have higher lows. Plus this particular high here is higher than this high, and if you look at the actual chart, our high here is actually below this. So this implies a degree of momentum, which when you look at the price action is fairly apparent anyway. But let's take a closer look at the price action that we've got for May, which is this rather strong looking bullish bar. Obviously this doesn't count for the time being because we're only halfway through the month, or just over halfway through the month, but for the immediate reference to monthly price action, we'd be looking at the previous month, and this is our May bar, and that's, as I say, pretty bullish. We still have lower highs in this particular instance, so we are still fulfilling the rules of a downtrend. However, not forgetting that we've got underlying momentum, potentially, with our higher lows on the RSI. We also have, for the first time, price action that has fully closed above this 20 EMA. So that's fairly significant, because these have been acting as dynamic resistance. This is the 10, this is the 20, this is the 50, and this is the 200. And they're currently in the correct order. So they are all above price, indicating that we're in mostly in a downtrend. Price is mostly in a sort of selling capacity. However, because we have currently been in a bit of a range, there is this flattening out that happens with the EMAs, and eventually you start to see changes in how price is reacting to them. In this particular case, price has been trying to break above it, and it's done a very good job of it for May. We have closed well above the 20, and that in itself has some bullish implications, as this 10 starts to move under price and actually start to look like it's carrying it. So if we get a little bit closer, in fact we can't, I'm sorry, this is MT4 and I can't make it any bigger, but this turquoise line, which is the 10 EMA, is currently holding the monthly bar for May, is holding it up as support, and the 20 is now coming up beneath the little forming bar that we've got for June. So if we take a look at the weekly, then I'll get us back into position and make that a bit smaller. We can see, actually that's a little bit too small, just get that in the correct place. If we look at this time frame, what we see is that we've actually got the 10 and the 20 and the 50s just coming under the 20, they are actually starting to take their correct order. And for the first time in a little while, we actually have what you could call a trend. Now, on a weekly time frame, this is perfectly adequate to call it an uptrend from the point of view of we're making higher lows and higher highs. Do bear in mind, of course, that when you are in a range, there are obstacles that you will be coming into contact with. So this is why it can become a little bit messy, but this isn't doing too badly, save, of course, this positive gap that happened. And since then, price has been moving at some rate towards the upper part of the range, which is where we're getting near to at the moment. Now, generally, when price breaks out of a restriction, in some, whether it's the restriction could be an EMA that's been providing resistance, it could be a price level, it could be a previous low from a price action cycle, mostly things like that. When price breaks through, which is this particularly strong bullish bar that we had in the last 5 weeks, you will tend to find that price will likely need to have a bit of a pullback, a rest if you like. But also what that can do is that can confirm that where price has broken through, price has effectively gone back to retest it and has effectively closed the door on that. Now that then becomes part of a bullish push up, a pullback, and logically followed by another push up. So this is what we're currently looking at the moment, where we've got a bullish pullback followed by a little bit of a consolidation, which is sort of looking like it might want to push down a bit further. So this is the part where we need to get into the current price action, because this is the week just passed. This is the bar that it ended up with, which is it's effectively an indecision bar. It doesn't really know what it wants to do. Some of this is to do with news-related movement, and some of it is just the fact that in that particular capacity, people weren't quite sure whether to take price further up or to have a pullback. So we've ended up kind of in nowhere land, somewhere around the 1.12 level, which is this sort of dark purpley grey line here. So in effect, what I would like to see is this pullback to resolve its move down by hopefully testing somewhere around here. So this is a combination of the 10. It's also a combination of this level here, which is approximately the 1.105 level, and a 50 fib Fibonacci level. So we have here from the low to the high, a pullback into the 50 fib area would bring us into contact with this point here. So there's a confluence of factors involved in this particular level, and to see price come back to this sort of zone, it might break through it a little bit. It might just gently sort of come near it, but somewhere in this zone, if this continues lower, that would give me some degree of belief in the fact that this is actually still trying to cycle higher, because this pullback would be nice and small. Because if it's a deep pullback, then that implies that there is a more sort of even spread of buyers and sellers, and if there's a more even spread of buyers and sellers, then markets get choppier. If everyone agrees on a direction, then you get much cleaner moves, and generally, as you trend through your cycles, you'll find that the part that is moving with trend will be far greater than the pullback, for obvious reasons. So I would like to see this pullback be relatively small. I'd like to see it come back into this zone. And just as a note, it might well get going from where it is. That's quite possible. If it is going to continue in a bullish manner, then that's feasible. But it would be perfectly acceptable to come back to this level, as I say, the 1.105 level, the 10 EMA on the weekly, and the 50 fib of this particular cycle. That would all work perfectly well. And then from there, effectively, we'd be looking for bullish price action to indicate that the pullback is over and we're now moving into the phase of the next potential run up. So where does this lead us? Well, as you may have noticed, we've got these higher time frame trend lines, and I think that I would like to just indicate why I have these here. In fact, we'll better go back to the monthly for this. The reason why these are here is because, as you can see, we're currently ranging within it. Now, I haven't just randomly placed these lines at all. They are actually to do with as many touches and divisions as I can find. So there's touch here, there's a touch there, there's a bit of division there, there's a touch here, bit of division through here. As you can see, all of this price action is sitting nicely on top. We've got a touch here, a little bit of division here. And from this particular application where I've got multiple touches, I've then basically copied, because this is where I felt that there was the most interaction with what would potentially be an inner trend line. This is where I felt I had the most touches. So from here I have copied. This will give me my angle. And I've copied this and I've placed it here and I've placed it here at the bottom. And it fits. So this also, again, bolsters my faith in the fact that this is of some degree of interest. So I am also looking from the point of view of where my trend line is placed. I'm also looking for the point at which, once this is pulled back, this may well break through the trend line, because this will then be potentially a new stage that price has broken through. Just like on the monthly, it's broken through the 20 for the first time. To get above this trend line, that's where I would like to see price. Now, what would be very interesting is if after the pullback and the breakthrough of these, the trend line and the 786 fib, which is all of this move down here, once it's broken through that, we are then faced with the 1.15 level, which, as you can see, is of significant interest. We also are very likely to come into contact through over time, because this will probably could take at least a week or two. We could find that we get to connect with this 50 EMA. So that in itself is also going to provide the next obstacle, and that would be the next key level to break. If we get past 1.15, then this is the next level. This is the next, as I say, obstacle that we'd want to break, because it's not actually a level, it's a dynamic interpretation of price action. So just going back to the weekly and getting that in place. So you can see potentially a pullback, then a continuation, possibly towards these highs here. And just quickly look at the daily, get a bit of a feel for what that might be doing. Now, this is where we could find a couple of things going on. And this is where I wasn't entirely sure if we might get going straight away from this point. And as I was describing on the weekly, I was hoping it would pull back, which would also connect somewhere with the 50 EMA on the daily, which would also be concurrent with the 10 EMA on the weekly. So around this sort of zone is where I'm interested. However, this is a nice looking little bullish bar. It certainly has got intention on its side. It has smashed straight into the underneath of what was a support level at 1.12, and it's also currently underneath a 10 EMA, and it has broken below the 20 EMA on the daily. So there's a couple of ways in which this could go. One way is that this is a push into resistance whereby it can't break through and it continues on its little move down. That's one way in which it could go, or it quite literally finds the power to move through 1.12 and takes another aim at taking out these highs. Incidentally, I would just like you to take notice of the fact that we've got a high here, a slightly higher high, and a higher high here, which is not actually replicated down here on the RSI. So we have got negative divergence. We're making slightly higher highs here at the top of this move, but on here we don't have the momentum underlying that. So again, this might support the idea that this resistance level could be a bit of a tough one to break, and that maybe we need to sell off a little bit more, pick up some buyers on the way down, and then eventually take another aim at taking out this particular high, which is just below the 1300 level, breaking through this 786 level and possibly making our way up towards the 1.15 level. Now there's a fair bit that's got to happen before we get there, but that's my thinking. So thank you very much for listening, and I look forward to speaking to you next week. Thank you. Bye-bye.